I'm Lester Holt.
Howdy, Hold Heads. Kurt Money here, alongside my co-host,
Caitlin.
and we are here to discuss another From the Vault. And dare I say, goddamn classic. From season 27, aired October 12th, 2018.
Here's Keith Morrison with At the Bottom of the Lake.
IMDb description. A pilot flees following a plane crash, becomes a fugitive, and lives a double life for decades. All true, but just wait till you hear the deets in between. Caitlin, what'd you think of this episode?
This was a banger.
Yup. You've never seen it?
I think I had seen it, but I didn't remember a lot of it.
Yeah.
And it was kind of reminding me of old Jason, the jet skiing Canadian.
Like they said, he got a passport. That's the hardest thing to get. He got all this.
He did, and not only that, he got it again in the United States.
Yeah, how did he do that? I didn't think that was possible anymore.
A little bit. This was reminding me of a lot of old ILHs, including, I can't believe Valerie's going to come up again later, but I was thinking of Valerie a little bit too.
Oh, yeah.
Valerie.
Can we talk about Valerie?
Yeah, Valerie.
Oh, Valerie. I just wanted to shake her.
Our story begins in Little Bitterroot Lake in Montana, September 17-ish, 1982. A young high school girl named Kim and her mom go to their cabin just to check in, maybe get a few more lake days in before it's too cold. And what do they see prying around the windows on their front porch?
As they pull up, they see a young man, about 20, standing on their deck. The daughter throws the car into park and mom jumps out, not scared.
And I didn't even have the pickup stop. Mom opened the door and hopped out to find out who was on our deck.
And approaches the guy and is like, "You're trespassing. What are you doing on our porch?" And he's really evasive.
Yeah.
He isn't really giving them anything about where he's from, who he is, what he's doing. But he doesn't look shady. He's like well-dressed and just looks like a nice young man, but doesn't look like a local. He definitely sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, he's wearing like a white polo, and Kim says he didn't look like a lake guy.
No, but also wasn't anything to really be worried about. I think they sent him on his way.
He got up and wandered off down the shoreline and out of sight.
So he takes off down the shore, and they go back in the cabin, but they keep peeping, because it sounds like Kim's mom is a nosy little Nancy. I mean, I'd have been peeking at this dude too. Let's be real, right?
Yeah, I think it's probably a little unnerving to see someone you don't know standing on your porch when your place is pretty isolated. I mean, these cabins, I think some of the cabins were maybe close together, but it's a really desolate area to get out to. So it's not like there's a lot of people just walking by.
When they show the wide shot, you realize it is a proper cabin, right? Like it's like a 1 or 2 room.
It is a log cabin.
He walks down the shore and they don't think anything of it. Not 50 yards away from there, the night before, 2 twins encounter a man as well, but he's in a little different state physically. Tell us about this guy.
They reported seeing what they realized was the same young man, but when they saw him, he was not well-dressed and looking clean-cut. He looked like he had just been through some shit.
Yeah.
He had scratches on his neck that were kind of bloody, and he was soaking wet, like he just crawled out of the lake, and it was very suspicious. It was tough for Keith to pull this information out of these twins, but once he got it, it all kind of clicked into place. That this was the same kid that had been seen the following day.
Yeah, but this part's crazy, and I know for a fact it's true because of my extra digging, but these twins, this strange guy who's cut all over and says he was attacked by a bear, okay? That was his explanation for the cuts. I think they may have said neck. I know that he had a lot of deep cuts on his legs as well, just to give you a little insight, because we hear scratches on the neck. I mean, that sounds like a strug. That sounds like a real strug. But anyway, These 2 twins, they're like, this guy's wet, he's bloody, attacked by a bear. Okay, we'll buy that. I was waiting for one of them to go like, "What? There's no bears here," or some sort of fact about that. But the guy goes, "Hey, my matches are wet. Can you go buy me matches and bring them back?" And these twins say, "Sure, dude. We're gonna do it right now."
Well, they made a point of saying like that's how it goes in small towns like this, especially back in the 80s. You help someone out.
Okay.
So they get on their bikes, they head down to the corner store, and they get some matches for this dude they don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that sounds crazy today, but back then, I don't know. They're all young. They're all like 20-something, kicking it. Maybe they're like, sure, bro.
Because we talked to these twins, and so they were definitely young teens at least when this happened.
Yeah.
I'm always skeptical about talking about how everybody in a small town is super nice and stuff. My guard is up on that because I think it's overall BS. But in this case, I think you're right. Naive kids, small town, early 80s in Montana. So they go get these matches.
And it's not like it's some adult. It's another kid around their age.
True.
Who's just passing through and needs some help. And they're like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, because he's 19. But as soon as he gets these matches, he doesn't like start a fire and eat some food or anything. This dude starts burning all the stuff with him. Mm-hmm. He starts a fire and it's like, okay, paper maps, those go first. Now the clothes. Now a gust lock, whatever the that is.
Right away I found what's called a gust lock. A gust lock is a bent piece of metal that actually fits into the yoke of an airplane.
He throws everything in this fire, burns it, and then again saunters away.
Saunters.
Then this strange man just sauntered off.
So these people, they don't think anything of it, just a weirdo at the lake. But then there's a little scuttlebutt going around the lake because there's a weird film on top of the water. It looks like, I don't know, it was an oil spill or something. And luckily, one of the young new deputies was also an airplane pilot, and he goes, that's fuel, y'all. That's from a plane.
Yeah, that's not from a boat. That is from a plane.
Yeah, because it was like a recreational lake, and there were, there's speedboats or whatever. So they start to look for it. And this process takes more than a week, and they made some empty promises. They thought they'd get this wrapped up in a few days. And every day it's like, well, here we go again. Keith thought that was pretty funny.
And then finally, on the very last day, they're like, well, if we don't find something today, we're calling off the search.
Right.
And wouldn't you know, that was the day.
Yep.
They used what they thought was very advanced fish finding technology.
Side scanning sonar.
And they find it.
Yes.
And they send the camera down, and there it is, and jackpot.
Everything you just said is so true, Kate. But in classic K-Money fashion, this rescue of this plane is what I had my questions about and I was most fascinated by. So you got to buckle up a little bit because we got to go into a little bit more details, okay? Because I thought it was...
Okay.
My mind was just blowing left and right because we see footage of this. I mean, they've got the local news on this. We see this whole process. I think it's pretty friggin' cool, right? Like, as far as B-roll to support the story, pretty good. Now, it's funny I say B-roll because we got 2 BYBs today, okay? But kicking that down the road. So they hear that there's a plane. But they're flying over the water. They're sending people to swim in it. They can't find anything. And the water is like crazy clear, too. So they're thinking we would see it. So then they get this side scanning sonar thing.
Then the sheriff heard about a thingamajig that was new at the time called side scanning sonar.
And then that tells them there is something down there. So then they send down a giant camera. And we see footage of them on the boat looking at this boat on the floor. That was pretty awesome. And then the crazy part. This is what set me off. Keith says they sent a submersible camera down and towed it up.
So they used the submersible camera. The guide hooks onto the airplane, and they pulled it up to a depth of about 100 feet.
Incorrect, sir. They sent down this wild yellow beast with wheels that suddenly turns into a boat that drops an anchor and picks it up for them. So this yellow thing, you know what I'm talking about?
No.
It was like a super boat looking thing. They drove it straight from the shore into the water. This is fucking James Bond. Or something.
Well, those boats exist, Kurt. A lot of boat tours, they start on land and they go... It's an amphibious vehicle, yeah.
Okay, well, good. Classic Hateline fashion. 0 impressed and already knows the info. But that's okay. Stick with me here. Here we go. But I'm looking at this boat going, this thing is wild. It's not a submersible camera. What is it and why aren't they talking about it? Now, a little insight. There's a character in this story who wrote a book. You know I bought it. You know I'm reading it. Mm-hmm. Now, I didn't finish reading it because I did read a 75-page transcript of a telephone call that we're going to talk about soon. So that's pretty cool. But on that dude's webpage, he has all the articles of all this stuff. Perfect to click on and read and everything. And so I'm reading old articles about this. And one of the old articles told me what that thing was. It was a World War II era amphibious boat with a winch. Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool. I mean, that's cool. They had to take something out of storage to get this. So here they are with the cutting edge technology with the sonar.
Side scanning so
But what gets that plane high enough in the water so that swimmers can like swim with it and carry it to the shore was some old relic World War II thing. That's cool.
That's cool. It wasn't as old in 82, though.
It's still 40 years old. It's 40.
It was, but seeing as this was a lake where there was a lot of boating and stuff, that boat may have been nearby and had been used on the lake a little bit. So I'm not convinced that it was like, let's ship it in from storage, to see if it still runs. I think it was maybe in use because it's a lake activity.
Okay. All right. Well, we can move on from this section now.
Sure was damp today.
So they are getting this boat up, and again, we're seeing this footage, and there's a crowd on the shore, and they're like cheering and stuff when they see the wings coming up.
And then the first responders are like, no, don't cheer. Don't cheer.
and sort of flew the plane up to the surface.
Because what they can see that the shore can't see yet is that that plane is not alone. What's in the passenger seat, Caitlin?
There is the body of a young girl, and she is kind of slumped over, and her hair is actually hanging out of the door of the passenger side of the plane. You see it hanging down from the door. The door is closed, and her hair is sticking out of it. And the first responders quickly put up a sheet as the plane came into view because they didn't want everyone on the shore to see it. But man, my heart sunk when everyone was cheering. I was like,
Same.
Guys, no.
Because to them, this is fascinating. They found a plane in the lake. Like, they don't know it's a potential murder or that there's a dead body coming.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, they put up the sheet.
She arrived at the lakeshore just in time to see the plane emerge from the water with that indelible image, the girl's hair stuck in the door, her long blonde locks wet from waving around in the water.
And now, if this story was being told on an FF or an Unsolved Mysteries,
They would have showed it.
we would have seen a pic. FF would not have blurred it. Other shows might have blurred it a little. They'd have given us a little taste of the body in the passenger seat. Kurt Money wanted it a little. I was curious. What about you?
Especially because everyone was talking about how well preserved and pristine this body was in.
Yeah.
And that it just looked like she was sleeping. It didn't look like she had even been under the water or anything. Just a perfectly preserved young girl laying in this seat. No cuts, no
what?
Signs of struggle.
Bingo.
Nothing.
And she is, they realized that her seatbelt's still on. And it's like faced towards her. So they are assuming that she struggled to get off the seatbelt and drowned in the plane. So the cops are like, we got a potential murder now. So now this is going crazy. So while all of this is going on, just over the mountains, where this mystery man had said he came from.
And he pointed over here and he said, over the mountains.
What does that mean?
No one comes from that way.
There is like a place where you rent planes in Canada. And they're going, we got a missing plane. What's the story here? And they realize in the no-fly zone, there was a disturbance. And that's when this guy was a straight up Dudley Do-Right. I mean, we saw a pic of him in the red, right?
Did.
In the Canada cop gear. It was pretty awesome. He finds out, and now it's like...
That would be the Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
The RCMP. They do... You know what? I'm glad you knew that, Kate, because that comes up a lot.
Probably why the RCMP had no idea that a sheriff down there in Montana had just begun investigating an oil sheen on the water and reports of a stranger wandering the shoreline.
So eventually they hear about what's going on over the mountains and they connect. So now we've got this weird thing where it's like missing plane. These two people are gone. And then in Montana, the cops are like, we've got a woman dead in a plane. Where's this mystery man? So the media loves this. And Kate, what do you think the media assumed was going on? Like what is the story they're presenting right now as it stands in 1982?
They were pushing the Romeo and Juliet thing, that these kids were forbidden from being together and they wanted to run off and live their lives, and they stole this plane and packed everything they had and set off for the unknown. How romantic.
Yeah, and I mean, look, we've been critical of Dateline throwing around Romeo and Juliet in the past.
Mm-hmm.
I have problems with Romeo and Juliet to begin with. So
Jen.
I don't like referencing it. Yeah, I think people forget what it's actually about.
This one fits. The first half of Romeo and Juliet, I think it fits. But the point of that story is the miscommunication at the end which again did not happen here.
Mm-hmm.
You with me there?
Yeah. And the press also tried to talk to, well, once they find out who these passengers were, they find out that there was no forbidden love. These two were totally allowed to date.
Yeah, according to the dead woman's dad, right? So, but wait, they take the body to do an autopsy. And what do they find out that that woman had done 2 days before they took off?
They find that she had had an abortion just 2 days prior to the plane going down.
Yeah.
And that her cause of death officially was drowning.
Yeah, and we find out who it was. It was Diane Babcock and Jerry Ambrozuk. Why'd I go for it?
Yaroslav Ambrozuk, the pilot, known as Jerry, and his passenger and girlfriend, 18-year-old Diane Babcock.
So Jerry and Diane, it's now the love story for the ages. There's like a new young reporter. Again, we see B-roll of her at her news station in Canada. That's cool. Seeing all these old monitors and stuff, I'm just like, oh.
It was cool. She was only like 22.
Yeah.
It was her first big case, her first big story, and we see her, and it was cool. She's, I'm sure she felt a connection to the case too, because she was close in age to the victim.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So, I mean, these two people, they were dating. Nobody else knew about this plan to take off. So, like, it could be a story of Romeo and Juliet. But old Deputy DuPont is suspicious, okay? The cops in Montana are like, no, this sounds like a kidnapping and a murder. That's what it sounds like to them.
So maybe the crash presented an opportunity to not have a clingy girlfriend.
Because as they say on the episode, she didn't have her nails, like we were saying, her nails, there's no signs of struggle. It doesn't look like she attempted to scratch her way out. They think it looks like she was in there intentionally and that the guy who was flying watched her drown. It's not like he killed her, but he didn't save her, is their theory.
He didn't save her.
And one thing that supports their theory is that they get this call. I had to find out how they got this call tapped and everything. Point is, a few weeks after this, they're finding all this info out, and Jerry makes a collect call to his buddy Tom in Canada, and they have it recorded because it turns out that the RCMP had bugged Tom's house, which he knew and Jerry knew about. So we actually hear a recording of this conversation. This was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, it's cool that we hear it. It doesn't quite support the Romeo and Juliet angle, though. Right, Caitlin? What's Jerry's vibe about the whole situation?
Jerry is playing it cool. He is saying, I was planning this trip. Diane was saying that she was, quote unquote, in love with me or whatever. And she just came along for the ride.
Because I wanted to get away, that's all. She just tagged along. And she said, can't live without, all this like that, right?
But he does say that he didn't kill her. The plane just crashed. And he survived. She didn't. But he downplayed their relationship to his buddy. And I don't know about you, Kurt, but this phone call, the two of them talking to each other, it sounded like Mark and Mike from American Movie.
Absolutely.
All of the extras have just fell through, except for Mike Schenk right there.
We used to do a lot of partying together, but I don't party anymore.
Yes,
these
indeed.
Two, and this is no shade to Mark and Mike.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah.
But these two sound like the dumbest. Their voices are so deep for being their age, and they sound hella dumb.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was just the time. I couldn't listen to much more of this, I'll just say. It was... They sound so stupid.
Well, this was the 75-page transcript that I just got done reading.
Oh, God.
Caitlin.
Kurt, how could you read 75 pages of that nonsense?
It was a little tough because there was a lot of ums and ahs and cutting off and everything.
Oh, I'm sure there were a lot of ums and ahs.
And also they would switch into Polish sometimes. Now, luckily that was translated. I didn't have to bust out my Polish translation skills. But I read it and I was hanging on every word because this phone call is the center of why I flip-flop on this case and how I feel about this whole thing. Now, maybe we talk about this overall at the end. What do you think?
I think we do.
But
yeah,
this is the most important thing to me because you hear him, his vibe is not Romeo. It's like this broad tagged along. I guess I had the seat for her and she didn't make it.
And Tom is kind of like, you need to come back, man. They're looking for you. And he's like, nah, I'm in New York or whatever. And then he's like, they're going to be looking for you till the day you die. And he's like, well, I didn't do nothing. And then it's like, well, if you didn't do nothing, why didn't you come back? Like, it's just mindless dum-dums.
Hi, what the hell are you doing there? I went because I was going to shoot him because I guess she was in love with me or something like that. Yeah, she's gone. I'm alone, and I'm lonely.
Okay, probably a third of the convo was that exact sentiment. I mean, I got to give Tom credit. He really tries hard to get his best bud to come back. He's in Canada talking to his parents. He's talking to the Babcock's parents. He's got BCCTV, he says, in his front lawn. And he's like, I don't know if they'll use it because I was swearing at him. But like, he makes a real hard case. Dude, come home. It's not worth it. They're going to think that you killed her. And now, this phone call was as presented, but there were funny, interesting things that were wild that, like, he goes, they're talking about how they wished that that his best bud was with him. And Jerry is like, it's like that Pink Floyd song, Wish You Were Here. And then they talk about Pink Floyd for a few pages.
Pages?
Yeah. And when they're telling the story of them growing up in Canada, these star-crossed lovers, we're seeing pictures of them, seeing pictures of Jerry, and we see his graduation photo. I did pause it to read the description, and oh, hey, first of all, it says he's a big Pink Floyd fan. I can confirm that because of the pages-long conversation about the title of a song. But it also said that he prefers a T3 Charger. Caitlin! Car Kate, what's a T3 Charger?
I'm assuming that's a Dodge Charger.
Oh, the T3 is something in there, like a different version of it or something.
Listen, if we're talking about muscle cars from the 70s and 80s...
Not your speed.
Caitlin, not an expert on those. They're
Fair.
Trashy. I don't care about them.
Right on. Okay. Well, that was his thing, and he also wanted to be a pilot.
Oh.
So he went to New York, and then he took a bus. This phone call happens in Texas, right? He's in freaking Texas with this call, and the cops know this, and they're like, well, he's not going to stay there, so we can't send somebody down there to watch this phone booth. So this is the beginning of 24 years of nothing doing with this. There's no more clues about this Jerry guy. They don't know where he is. People are like, is he in a bar in Mexico? Is he dead underneath a rock somewhere? Nobody knows. And then we meet Gina. Can you tell us about Gina, Caitlin?
Gina, listen, I liked Gina.
Me too.
I know there's
Me
the
too.
Valerie comparisons here, but Gina, I thought she was really funny. Loved her hair.
Yep, for half of it. BYB, B-roll you busted. Unfortunately, she switched her hair in between shoots because when they shoot her walking around, long blonde hair. But when she's talking to Keith, it's like purple and turquoise and awesome and stuff.
Yeah.
They were probably like, dude, why? Come on.
I know.
Anyway, so just a little BYB, B-roll you busted. Continue.
But she looks great no matter what color she's got. But I loved the purple and the teal and stuff.
Yeah, that was cool.
She tells us about a man that she met and dated for a little while based in Texas.
Yep.
And this man's name is Michael Lee Smith.
Yep.
Pretty bland. Almost fake sounding.
Yeah, almost. But yeah, what drew her to Michael Smith's profile?
The number one thing was that he is honest. He does not like dishonesty. And she loved that because she had just gotten out of some relationship that was
newly divorced,
all about dishonesty. You know, didn't want to date any liars or people that were pretending to be something they weren't. And she just loved that up front he said, what you see is what you get. I don't like dishonesty.
Yeah, and this is the Valerie connection here because honesty was really important to Valerie as well. From Death at the Spa.
We talked about anything and everything, complete honesty.
And in that case,
I think that maybe this is a dating red flag, that if someone says they're all about honesty and that's what they look for, it's because they're hiding something.
Yeah, I agree.
And they know how easy it is to hide something. They're doing it. They don't want the person they're looking for to be hiding from them. But really, it's projection. I'm being shady.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say that I don't like when people are shady.
Yeah, I mean, now with hindsight, we can say this, but I mean, I agree that's absolutely a red flag. You see that, you just know it's the opposite, and I feel like when a guy puts it on his profile...
The words, I am honest and don't cheat or play games.
What he's really saying, I don't ever want to fight or talk about my feelings. I hope that's going to be okay.
Yes.
What do you think? That's what I think it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
lazy dude shittiness.
And that is what happened. They start dating, and he actually doesn't really reveal much about who he is or his upbringing or anything like that. She starts to notice some cracks in the facade.
Yeah.
And I actually thought this was pretty good sleuthing on her part.
Absolutely.
She notices his class ring.
Yeah.
And the year that he would have graduated from college.
Yeah.
And his profile said that they were about the same age. But the year on the ring implied that he was older than that. But she kind of tucked it away, like, okay, that... Oh, she said, wow, you must have been really smart if you graduated that year, because he would have been like a 18-year-old college graduate.
He told her that he had a degree in aerospace engineering, but the year that he graduated from on his ring was the same year that she graduated from high school. So assuming you got to go to college for more than 4 years for that, there's at least a 6-year discrepancy. So she's like, I don't get it. Were you in college for like a week? And she proposes this to him. This is good sleuthing, and they call it, because she's like a failure analysis at Texas Instruments, the calculator company.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's like, what's going on here? So she confronts him, right? Now, it comes up, though, because he's like, yeah, I'm 34. Don't I look young for my age? This fool.
I loved this. She goes,
yeah.
Well, actually, no. You look older. I don't think you're 34.
Yeah, what up?
And that's when it all comes out.
That's where it all comes out, but that is not where it ends. Because although she's very inquisitive here, she gets pissed and says exactly, hey, I think even Valerie asked this, what else are you lying about?
So what else have you lied to me about?
Is that even your real name? Now, us on the outside, we're going, no, dude, of course it's not Michael Smith. But old Mikey Smith just gets bashful and doesn't answer it. So this goes on for a month. Oh, but wait, pause, real quick. This lying thing about the age, no reason for it, not tied to this plane accident we're talking about at all. This is simply him being embarrassed about being 43. Like, this is unrelated, right?
Yeah.
This is, I was like...
Yeah, although I guess it's also his real age, and maybe he was trying to further distance himself from his real identity, so he wouldn't want to be 43.
Look, I'll bet when I get to that part in the book, that's what he's going to say. So I hope Future Kurt pops in and confirms or denies this. Future Kurt here. I can't confirm or deny that because he did not give that detail in the book. The chapter where Gina's introduced is called The Black Widow Cometh. And now I'm on a chapter called, what, a free vacation? Sure, I'm in. Oh, this book is amazing. Okay, but forget about why he lied about his age. Because what he does have on his site, and he linked to in his book, check this out. I can't believe this. Future Kurt is beside himself. How to tell you that Gina, this woman who went on the Japan trip with him, you know how Keith is like, he showed up on America's Most Wanted 3 times?
Jerry Ambrozuk had joined the list of America's Most Wanted, appearing on several versions of the popular TV program, including Final Justice.
What Keith did not mention is that the third time they talked about Jerry Ambrozuk,
he went into a watery grave. Or did he? And how did this woman figure it out?
Fuck, Gina is on it. Gina's on that episode. And here's the best part. Hidden in shadow.
I actually flat out asked him, you lied to me about your age. What else have you lied about? Is Michael Smith even your real name?
She's pulling a Kate line over here. Can you believe it? Okay, here's some clips.
Every mother's worst fear that her daughter's going to meet somebody that's been on America's Most Wanted on the internet, you know? And I did.
Okay, I'm really going back and forth with this Jerry guy, whether or not I like him, but I love that he has the entire 10-minute segment embedded in his website, like through his own video player. It's not like YouTube where they could pull it because of restrictions. Oh, it's great. It's great. It's wild that she was in it and in shadow. And even Sheriff DuPont, old DuPont himself, is on the episode.
He had time, certainly, to remove everything of his inside the aircraft, and he also had time to get into her purse and remove the money. If you had time to do that, why didn't you have time to get her out?
Woo! Okay, back to the show. That sounds exactly like the thing that he would say after having 24 years to think about it. But he also showed up to the date in a Dodge Viper, and he's like, they're my toys.
2 or 3 cars? Viper? Yeah, it was... toys.
I just feel like this guy is like full of himself a little, right? That's what I'm thinking in this moment.
He wanted a Dodge Challenger, but he settled For a Dodge Viper.
Well, yeah, but according to Keith, it still costs $80,000.
Yeah.
Money not well spent. IMO.
I'm not a fan of Vipers.
Honestly, if you had a date with somebody you met online and he showed up in one of those, you'd be a little suspect, right? I mean, I feel like that's a red flag in itself, just that he drives one of these things.
Yeah, it's a red flag in that he has no taste.
Yeah, so she waits a little bit, and she's stewing on this for a few weeks or a month, and she goes, well, what is your real name then? That's when he tells her, Jarek Ambrozuk.
Okay, what's your real name? Tell me, what is it?
What was it?
Jarek Ambrozuk. I think he said he went by Jerry or something.
I can't believe he told her straight up.
Yeah.
Because he knows that people are going to Google that.
Yeah, he is very, very laid back about this being confronted thing. So she is like, okay, good to know. Next day at work, calculator company. She's in there sniffing failures out or whatever. And she straight up Googles them. And the first result, I mean, this was like an unsolved mystery. So like she finds out that this was the longest running, still at large criminal. It was on America's Most Wanted 3 different times. And they never got any info from it. Mm-hmm. And she's looking all this up and she's going, and she finds out it originated with this plane crash where Diane died. Now, he had said that he only loved one woman in his life, but she died young and he was torn up about it. That was like his romantic history. But now Gina's putting it all together, reading the articles. And she's pissed and she's like, she's upset on behalf of the Babcocks. Like, you're robbing your family and her family out of closure on this. What's going on? So she wants him to fess up about it. And his response is, I'm not ready. I'm not quite ready. Maybe 25 years after, maybe I'll be ready. But here at 24, it's too early. Step off, Gina. And what's Gina's response?
Gina's response is, I'm going to go with you to Japan on your work trip. And you know what?
Think about
Keith tried to be like, really? You cared more about that? And I'm not mad at Gina for that.
Did you kind of fool yourself there?
No, I went in with eyes wide open.
Me neither. She owns it.
What's 2 weeks? Go to Japan. That's a once-in-a-lifetime trip. Paid?
Yeah.
Paid for by the company?
Yeah.
You can always call the FBI when you get back.
Yeah, I mean, she kind of frames it a little bit that it was weighing on her in Japan of like, I can't live with this. Come on, Gina. You wanted that trip.
No.
But I'm kind of with you, Kate. 24 years, what's 24 years in 2 weeks, right?
Mm-hmm.
They'll be just as happy in 2 weeks. So they go to Japan, and we got footage of that too. This doesn't go so well. She's taking too many pictures. It falls apart.
Yeah, she said that he didn't like that she was taking so many pictures and not paying attention to him. She cared more about the beautiful scenery and attractions
in Japan
than him. And I'm like,
yeah,
bro, why don't you care about the scenery?
Yeah.
I've been to the places that they had been in those photos, and I'm like, yeah, she should have cared more. That's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Yeah. Again, this speaks to the part of this gentleman I don't care for in the very selfish side where he's like, wow, come on, what about me? I'm like, dude, come on. So these are points against this guy. And then he gets the most minute of points that on the flight back, he gave up his first-class seat to her.
Yarrick, ever the gentleman, willingly gave up his first-class seat home to Dallas so Gina could experience flying up front on an international flight.
Okay, what do you think?
Yeah, that's a long flight, so...
Oh, good point, because are they in Texas?
That was actually that's a very heroic move, actually.
Is it heroic? Okay.
That's like a 14-hour flight.
Okay, so that was pretty nice.
15 maybe. If you're going right to Dallas from Tokyo, that could be 14, 15 hours.
That's a lot. I'll bet he regretted it back there in coach, but we got to give him cred because he gave up the seat. But they get home, they break up, but it's amicable, right? And even he says, if you ever change your mind, come on back. Because she's like, now that I'm back from Japan, fresh-faced, I had a minute to think about it. I'm not cool with this. You need to admit this, what you did. And he's like, I'm not going to do it. Mm-hmm. So they go their separate ways. And this starts to eat at Gina. And she's looking at her calendar. And there's no upcoming trips. And she's going, my conscience, I can't handle this, okay? I got to call it in. So she makes some calls, fesses up on this guy. What are you thinking right now, Caitlin?
Well, we see the detective back in Montana, and he's like a second away from retiring, and this is the case that he could never put to bed, and it ate away at him. It's that classic tale.
Yep.
And he gets this call, and he cannot believe it, and she tells him I know where this Jerry guy is. He's living a different life in Texas. Come down and get him.
Yeah, and it's like a few weeks later or something, this guy Michael Smith, there's a guy in a polo that drove up in a truck that asked if he's Michael Smith, and as soon as he says yes, another guy flanks him with a gun to the head and says like, put him up! It's the friggin' FBI here to arrest him.
Yeah.
So they throw the old cuffs on him, and now the jig is up. I mean, they found this guy. He survived. In Montana and Canada, but mostly Montana, they're itching to get this guy back out of Texas because they want to friggin' charge his ass because negligent homicide has up to a 20-year sentence, is what they're thinking in Montana.
She didn't have to wait long for Sheriff Jim DuPont to return her call.
He sounded excited. He sounded very excited.
This is where I don't want to get caught in the weeds here, Kate, so maybe you tell the next step of the story because I know about his prison experience. It's not worth telling on the pod. He was just whining about it in the book. So what happened next in the episode? Well, of course what happened in the episode? Caitlin, did you... I mean, they freaking teased it in the cold open.
It's one of those kind of cases where really you're the only person on the planet who knows the truth.
But KM sits down with this dude. We're talking to the guy himself, Jerry Ambrozuk, talking to KM.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, we meet him, and he gives us his side of the story.
Yep, and he supports the Romeo and Juliet angle. He says it was a love story. It was a star-crossed love story. R.I.P. Diane.
He says that they did have the abortion a few days earlier, that it was something that they both agreed to. This was not pressured by anyone. This was not forced on her.
Right.
They agreed to this. They packed the plane full of survival gear because they intended to run off together.
Yep.
But when he was ditching the plane, he, I guess, pushed the yoke a little incorrectly, and the tail hit the water, which forced the plane to flip, and it was upside down. He was thrown out of the plane, and when he swam around to the side to get Diane, he realized the plane was upside down and her door was on the other side, and he's scrambling around trying to get to her.
She's screaming.
And she's screaming. The seatbelt was stuck, wouldn't come off, and his explanation is that unlike what the detectives in Montana had theorized, that he had all this time to just watch her drown, he says it was like 15 seconds and that plane was sinking. And he was trying as hard as he could to get her free, and it just happened so fast that he had to get out or he was going to go down with it. And there wasn't anything he could do. And he says, it's one thing to sit on your couch and theorize and talk about how you did this wrong, you did that wrong, you had all this time. But he was like, in the moment when you're panicked, you have a head injury from when the plane crashed. It knocked them both around.
I mean, he flew out.
He's disoriented.
He flew out the front windshield.
He flew out. He was ejected out the front windshield because he didn't have a seatbelt on.
Right.
So he was hit in the head, pitch black, delirious, swimming. The plane is sinking and she's screaming. Maybe this is where we're going to disagree, Kurt, but I don't think he did anything wrong in that moment. What he did do wrong was what happened after that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like we're on the same wavelength. He didn't do anything wrong. Sure, we can hope he did a little bit more. And maybe that's where my head is at. Maybe he could have done a little bit more, but we do not know. And for 24 years, Montana cops are thinking he had 30 minutes to save her.
Right.
When it's like, if you erase that single fact, this story has changed. And I think that after decades of them believing that, talking to America's Most Wanted, looking for this guy.
He stayed on that very big deal list all the way through the 1990s.
They can't get that fact out of their head. But with that gone,
They built him up as a murderer in their minds. And really, he was just a dumb kid. And he was panicked and confused and probably in shock. So he made some really stupid choices. When he swam to shore, he did everything wrong by not immediately telling people what had happened, by burning all the evidence. But I don't think that it was to hide the fact that he'd done something bad. I think it was because he knew he needed to start a new life. So he was just burning the evidence of himself as Jerry. And he wanted to start over as Michael.
Yeah, Future Kurt here again. And I got some questions about this plane. Because the report says the plane did not go underwater upside down. Now, Jerry Ambrozuk debates this. But my question is, wouldn't you be able to tell if it was upside down still on the bottom of the lake? Now, I know you're thinking it's dropping 255 feet, it could spin. But when I Googled it, check this out. If a Cessna 150 crashes into water upside down, it is likely to sink immediately and go to the bottom upside down, as the design of a typical airplane does not provide any buoyancy when inverted in water. The fuselage will fill with water and pull it downwards quickly. And I can't tell in this friggin' footage with their submersible camera if we see a shot of it, if it's upside down or right side up on the bottom of the lake. I mean, that seems like a pretty good way to tell. I don't know. But if it didn't flip over, then his whole confusion about what side she was on is BS. So, boy, I don't know. This is a mystery. Here's what I'll say. In that 75-page convo that I read, he said more than once, how could someone be so stupid to have their seatbelt on backwards? He kind of said some negative stuff about old Diane. All right. Now, again, shock or whatever. He's talking to his buddy. That could be, you know what? That's him in the moment processing this. And his way of process it is, how is it not my fault? How could she be so stupid? Also in this call, he says, hey, in New York, I bought that knife that you bought, right? How much did you pay for yours? And he makes Tom answer $30. And he's like, I got mine for $22 in New York. So I don't know.
Right. Here's the thing. I know how young kids talk.
Mm-hmm.
How do you do, fellow kids?
They don't talk about, or at least back then, they're not going to gush about how in love they are with some girl, no matter how much they love them.
Even if they just f***ing died and you're wanted?
The party line was always, yeah, I mean, she's into me or whatever. Like, you're just trying to talk to make yourself sound cool around your friends. So to me, that's just how that sounded, because they both sounded dumb. It just sounded like them being like, yeah, I mean, she's like clingy, I guess.
I hear what you're saying, and I know that in some cases we can say they're being dumb boys and they're not going to say, hey, I love her. I don't know. It just felt, that's where I get hung up. Because I don't know why in that moment when he's being honest with his buddy Tom and when he knows that the convo is being recorded, it feels wild to me that he would say that stuff.
Maybe he was going the opposite way. Instead of saying how much he loved her, which is what adult version of him is now saying, kid version of him was like, I gotta make it seem like I didn't intend for her to even be there. Okay. So that it makes him look even more innocent. I mean, he's dumb.
Mm-hmm. I'm not mad at him. I do not want to, because now that he's arrested, okay, now all the charges are coming. It's not like I want this guy to go to jail forever for this. I don't think he's a cool dude. Well,
the Viper gives that away.
Of course. And also his attire. Real talk, Kate, when they first showed him that god-awful shirt he's wearing with the white lettering across the breast, for a split second, I said, oh, he's in prison. I thought that was like his prison number.
Same. No, it's just some like Euro trash shirt.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So we learn about what he did during those years up until meeting Gina. And he got his GED first of all, the very first thing he did was like get arrested for petty theft or something.
Because he got robbed. He was crashing with a guy and he had $2,200 that he had saved from the plane crash. And this guy robbed him.
Yeah.
Now, apparently in that convo, he said, I was going to do the same to him. So I guess it's okay. He was like, I was going to steal his car anyway. But this dude manages to get a birth certificate. I mean, I just got a birth certificate recently. It's easier than you think, but this wouldn't fly today, obviously.
No.
But once he had that piece of paper that called him something else, he was off and running.
He got help with that. A guy told him, go to a cemetery, find a grave of someone who died as a child, who would be around your age now. Take their name and their information. Say you lost your birth certificate and you need a new one. They'll print you off the birth certificate. Then tell Social Security you need a new Social Security card because, you lost your old one. You give them the birth certificate as proof. Then they give you a Social Security card. So now he's got a full brand new identity. He is Michael Lee Smith and he can get a job. He can go to school.
He can go to school. Yeah.
He gets his GED. He goes to school for, what was it?
Aerospace engineering or
Aerospace
something.
Engineering.
But the only hiccup in this plan is everything's going great for this guy. Years pass. He's Michael Smith. He goes to college. He's like, I'm going to be a pilot for the government.
Yes.
Uh-oh.
But then he realizes if I do anything in aerospace for the government, they're going to do a background check and see that nothing happened to me since birth.
Yeah.
And also that I died. So
back up from this.
He pivots. And he goes into software engineering and starts a company and successful. He's got a big house and a ton of cars and he travels the world and he's just fully living a different life.
He got a passport because he repped one of his clients was like Honda Racing or something.
Yes, it was Honda Racing. So he got to go to Japan.
Yeah. Now, was that for F1 or no? They showed one of the little cars.
I couldn't tell.
So, like, he does make a lot of money in web design. Now, this has to be a case where he made a lot of great money early on. Because I'm well acquainted with his website. I'm now a member. Hit me up, username Kurt Money. Okay? But the design on this website, woo-wee, it is some GeoCities nonsense.
He created an elaborate website with all the documents from his cases. All of them. He's an unusual person.
And he wrote this book in 2018, Kate. Websites weren't looking like that in 2018, is all I'm saying.
Wow.
They show a picture of it. It's bad. I mean, it's bad. But again, I love it because it had proof of all this stuff. So what happens? I mean, he's arrested. Like, what's the ultimate punishment he suffers?
Well, they bring him back to Montana. And in Canada, his sentence is kind of thrown away because he had stolen that plane.
Yeah.
But the company that he stole the plane from dropped those charges 30 years ago. So there wasn't anything on him there. So he only stood to serve time in Montana.
Right. But before he goes back, this was funny because the detective, which Keith talks about the old footage of how we talked to him back in 2008. This Deputy DuPont, he became sheriff, was after this guy forever, and he has since died. R.I.P. Sheriff DuPont.
He died in 2012.
But he was around, and he got to interrogate him and stuff. So he was around when all this went down. And he goes, and the U.S. government, in their wisdom, gave him a free ride back to Canada. My question to you, Kate, do you ever say, in their wisdom, and you don't mean it sarcastic? I feel like that's always sarcastic.
Always.
Right?
Always.
Yeah.
The federal government, in their wisdom, deported him back to where it all started, to Vancouver. So he got a free ride home.
I liked hearing that. That was kind of funny. But yeah, I mean, because he does like 9 months in jail while all this is getting sorted.
Mm-hmm.
And so like with time served and stuff, he got like probation.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he didn't do any time. He didn't do a second of time.
No.
Post trials.
I thought it was wild how he sounded nothing like he did on that phone call as a kid.
Plane sinks and nobody knows any better.
His voice is not as low.
Hi. What the hell are you doing there?
That call sounded warped to me, whether it be the poor bugging devices. I mean, honestly, it kind of sounds like we do when I do a flashback where I play it at 85%.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it kind of sounds like we do when I do a flashback where I play it at 85%.
Yeah.
It's like they both sounded like their pitch was down.
Also, he doesn't sound as dumb. He sounds like a normal, relatively smart, educated guy.
Yeah, and he's...
I mean, there's something to be said for getting that GED.
That's true, and now he's stoked because now he's reunited with his family. Now, this is, we could talk big picture stuff. He kind of paints this picture of him having to recover from losing the love of his life and how he never recovered. Now, he says, in the book, he says, 24 years is plenty of time to grieve a loved one. So I eventually got over it. And I'm like, okay, dude, fine, whatever. Here's who I think about. Diane's family, who, by the way, okay, so Jerry's parents knew he was still alive. Well, one, because of the phone call, but he sent them a Christmas card in December of 82. That was his last contact with his family. And in that Christmas card, his message for his sister that he told Tom to tell her was, lay off the sweets, you'll be prettier. That was also in that, Caitlin. How's that? My parting words to my dear sister that I love so much. Hey, fatty, lay off the food, will ya?
Yeah, we don't know their relationship, though. That could have been typical nagging brother and sister kind of vibes.
Okay.
But his parents, they never moved. They never changed their phone number because they knew that one day he would come back. And he did.
Yeah, but he let them worry all these years, though. And I could say this, his mom was sent to the hospital immediately after all this went down in 82 from stress and stuff. Like, she was physically ill worrying about him. The Babcocks, Diane's parents, would drive to her grave once a year to pay their respects. They do it in 99, 16, 17 years after it goes down. Friggin' Mama Babcock dies in a car crash on the way to see her dead daughter's grave.
Mm-hmm.
So that's who I'm thinking about here. Like, dude, you stole a lot of time from those people.
Yeah.
What do you think?
That's what I'm saying. I don't think he messed up when the plane went down. I think he messed up in all the years after it.
Yeah.
Although he did steal the plane and intentionally crash it. That is also illegal.
Yeah, but hey, they dropped the charges, so...
But no, I don't think he had any intent to hurt Diane, and he hurt Diane's family and his own repeatedly for the years after.
Yeah, but it wasn't anything you can be tried for.
No.
It's just stuff we can side-eye him and judge him from over here, which I'm doing. But yeah, it's nothing, I don't think there's like a miscarriage of justice here.
No. Me neither.
I think he got fucking lucky. Diane's side of the family did not. Yeah, this guy, he wrote a book. It's called A Tear in My Life. Now, I fucking hated this title, Kate. Do you know why?
Because it looks like a tear in my life.
Thank you. Yeah.
And also the font is unreadable.
Yeah, it's god-awful. And the subtitle was like, Battling the Truth. But this tear thing, you could say, oh, it means both ways. Wrong. He only wants it to mean tear because on every page, it's not on the original cover, but on every page of his website, there's a little, like an emoji of a tear next to the title. Like on the top of every webpage, there's a blue teardrop, and then it says, A Tear in My Life. So he flubbed. He wanted it to only be tear, and I hate it for this reason.
What does that even mean?
Yeah, who knows? I mean, the one tear he shed.
For Diane.
On his way to becoming a Viper-owning businessman. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the dude sucks.
Yeah.
He's not a murderer.
Yeah, I like that. Dude sucks, not a murderer. Terrible style.
Yeah.
Needs a Caitlyn makeover or something. Would Caitlyn even touch this guy with a 10-foot pole? Or are you like, you're on your own?
You mean like looks-wise?
If he came to you and said, Caitlyn, I need to speak to VIB Kate, okay? I need to speak to all the Kates that are all about dressing over. I need you to treat this like a what not to wear sitch.
Look, if he pays me, I'll do it.
Okay. All right, so I think that brings us on to our lists. Caitlyn.
Kate's unnamed list. All right. It is a small town because it's a remote lake vacation spot. And nothing like this ever happened there, which is why everybody, including the media, was standing on the shore waiting for that plane to come up. So yeah, I think I could count it as a small town.
Yeah, I'll give you that. Anything else?
Well, do we count the Viper? It had nothing to do with solving the crime, but it certainly made an impression.
Yeah, I mean, hey, it's Carcate's call, but
and you know what?
What's that?
I'm tempted to even add f*** them kids.
Ooh.
Because this is clearly a dumb kid thing. The whole thing is because he was a dumb kid and he f***ed up this plane crash and then he did dumb kid for years.
You know what? Here's why I think it is. And I think you should call it that officially. His reasoning for wanting to leave, because both these people supposedly had good home lives. And all I could decipher from the transcript of that conversation is his dad was mean to him and wanted him to get a job or something. Like, you're right, it is a damn kids, because he had no reason to want to run away. He could have driven to America. Like, it doesn't...
Totally.
He wasn't running from anything, just an annoying dad. So I'm with you. I'm with you. That's two things.
Them kids.
Boom.
How's to say bye to Charlene and the kids? Them kids. The kids?
Yeah.
On to Kirk's Kick-Ass List.
Kick-Ass List.
Keith hops on this list twice by talking about how it's something straight out of a movie. Okay? 2 different times in 2 different ways, he says this is like out of a movie, and I totally agree.
It was almost like it happens in the movies. A twist quite out of the blue. Quite a story. Straight out of a movie.
Also, when Keith is asking him, like, when did you cook this up? He says it was a night where he and Diane had watched some movies. And this is 1 point for old Jarek, because he told us those movies. Do you remember what they were?
I do not.
Okay, 1, Apocalypse Now. Great movie. I get it. And then also Tarzan the Ape Man, one of the worst films ever made. It is so boring and lame. Not even the nudity of Bo Derek could save it. It's a snooze fest.
I've never seen it, but that is what gave them the inspiration to take the plane and leave, right?
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to think of the plot of Tarzan the Ape Man. But I guess, so they were in...
They wanted to go live in the wilderness.
Yep, okay, that's exactly it. And that could be the connection between those 2 movies, too. Living in the wilderness and stuff. You nailed it.
We ended up watching this movie called Tarzan the Ape Man and also Apocalypse Now.
Oh, there's a bunch of times Keith is talking about the technology back then, or lack thereof.
You can only imagine the challenge back then, technology being what it was. All this was pre-internet, of course, and that's probably why the RCMP had no idea. That last phone call he made to his friend Tom was traced to a phone booth. You remember those, don't you? Long gone now.
Was there anything else? Let me check in my notes. Oh, hold up, Caitlin. Did I officially do the BYBs? Did I officially do that?
No.
Busted! BYB number 1. We're talking to Gina. She's got the purple and the blue hair, but the shots were from another day, and she had long blonde hair. B-roll, you busted. Nothing to do about it, but your ass is busted. BYB number 2 is more of like inane questions I have for Dateline editors and producers that might bear no interest to the Holt heads. But I don't understand why they blurred his high school photo, and I don't get why they showed the same picture twice and blurred his mouth in one of them and his eyes in the other. What's up with that? You got any ideas? I mean, it sounds like...
No ideas.
Sounds like their ass is busted. B-roll, you busted.
You busted.
Busted. All right. Well, that's going to wrap this up. I thought this was a hell of a From the Vault.
It was.
Go to our Patreon, ILH, and join there because we drop 2 new episodes every month about non-Dateline shows, but we still do the lists. We're still doing BYBs. I know you're out there for that. We've never had a f***ing kids yet over on the Patreon. Is that correct?
No, we have not.
Not yet. Not yet. But yeah, so that's going to do it. Also, YouTube, I'm Lester Holt. That's us. And on that note, I'm Kurt Money.
I'm Caitlin.
I'm Lester Holt. For all of us, I'm Lester Holt. Good night.
That suddenly turns into a boat.